Welcome.
I'm Cameron Scott, one of the story architects of Star Wars: The High Republic.
This is Dominic Pace, who plays Gekko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian.
Hi, I'm Claudia Gray. I write Star Wars books.
And you're listening.
And you are listening
to Star Wars Comics in Canon. The Force is strong with this one.
Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Comics in Canon, your guide to the wider Star Wars canon through the comic book lens. And to take you on this journey, I'm your host, Mike Burton. And so brings episode 121. So my friends, this week I am tackling the Hidden Empire number 1, as well as 2 crossover issues, which is Dr. Aphra number 27 and Bounty Hunters number 29. Now, if you haven't tuned in before, welcome, hello there. In short, I go through each of these comics in chronological order, and I give you plot details as I go along through the comic, so you have an understanding of what's going on plot-wise, and along the way I give you bonus information on species, or planets, or characters that pop up that I think you'd find interesting, and that have appeared in other pieces of content. So this is a way to connect the various canon comics to other pieces of canon content, while giving you an overview of the plots and information that goes on within them, and expanding your canon knowledge in general. So this is perfect if you've never picked up a comic before in your entire life, you get a good understanding of what's happening, but if you have already read these comics, it serves as a good refresher and almost like an expanded version because I go through the additional connected content. So that's what you can expect from this episode, so let's just delve straight into things. So we are starting with Hidden Empire number 1. So Hidden Empire is the third of the Qi'ra crossover events. It started with War of the Bounty Hunters, then there was Crimson Reign, and now we've got Hidden Empire. So they're all somewhat related to Qi'ra, who is Emilia Clarke's character from Solo: A Star Wars Story, and it is all in connection with Crimson Dawn. Now, all of these issues are set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and my normal episodes for War of the Bounty Hunters and Crimson Reign has been one episode, and I tackle the issue number or whatever, because Hidden Empire, Crimson Reign, and War of the Bounty Hunters are all mini-series that have like 5 issues, and whenever I tackle, say, issue 1 of them, I then tackle the corresponding crossover issues between Dr. Aphra, Bounty Hunters, Darth Vader, and Star Wars, 3 of those in their 2020 runs, whereas Bounty Hunters, it's the only run that's out there in the canon. Now, the last few months of Comics in Canon has shown that I've been doing the in-between issues, so there's like a story arc or 2 in all of the crossover issues I just mentioned that take place after Crimson Reign, but before Hidden Empire. So, with those ones with Star Wars, I did an episode 115, for Bounty Hunters, episode 114, for Darth Vader, 119, and for Dr. Aphra, 117. I also tackled Star Wars Revelations last week in episode 120. That's like an idea of what's to come for the future sort of slate of these Star Wars comics, and I tackled Crimson Reign number 5 in episode 110. So all of those episodes, if you've listened to them, you should have a good idea of what's going on, but you don't have to listen to them to enjoy this episode, but it's lightly recommended you've either picked up those comics or you have listened to my episodes on these. But at the moment with Hidden Empire, the explicit crossovers with Star Wars comics and the Darth Vader comics are not quite as clear as they have been with War of the Bounty Hunters and with Crimson Reign. So in this episode, I'm just doing Hidden Empire 1, Dr. Aphra 27, and Bounty Hunters 29, because they all clearly cross over, they're all clearly amidst the same timeline, and then as I kind of do more of these Hidden Empire issues, either I'll continue with Aphra and Bounty Hunters, or it may end up going back to the format that was with Crimson Reign and War of the Bounty Hunters, which will be all 4 of the crossover issues plus Hidden Empire. But at the moment with Star Wars and with the Darth Vader comics, it's unclear how much they are actually connecting with Hidden Empire at the moment. Vader kind of seems to be doing like 5 things at once in like every comic issue all at the same time, and it's a little bit confusing, but not worrying about those elements. I'm just going to delve straight on into Hidden Empire 1. So Hidden Empire 1 was written by Charles Soule, the penciler is Steven Cummings, the inker is Victor Olazaba, and the colour artist is Guru EFX. Hidden Empire 1 was released November 16th, 2022, and the trade paperback collection for Hidden Empire 1-5 should be released July 4th, 2023. Now, much like Crimson Reign, Hidden Empire 1 starts with the archivist speaking to someone through either a holocron or a communicator or something. It seems like a couple of people have found this old temple, but it notes this is beyond the reign, so it's at some point after Crimson Reign, Crimson Dawn, all that sort of stuff. We don't know if it's just after Return of the Jedi, we don't know if it's post-episode 9, we have no idea when this is. I suspect probably post-episode 6, but we shall see. But I'm just going to read out some stuff from the archivist, because it's like a little monologue thing. So, in the days of the Galactic Empire, Lady Qi'ra, ruler of a powerful criminal syndicate known as Crimson Dawn, had entered into a secret war against the 2 Sith Lords who controlled the galaxy. Her goal was not to depose them and take control of the Empire herself, though she believed in power. Her quarrel was with absolute power, especially when that power was held by those who used cruelty, fear, and injustice as their primary tools. Qi'ra wanted Darth Sidious and Darth Vader dead. She spent many years trying to achieve this goal. Then the two people sort of listening to this say to themselves, if only Qi'ra hadn't tried to do this all by herself, if only she hadn't kept it a secret, maybe we could have done something to help her. And the other one says, she never struck me as the trusting type. My impression was that with the life she led, the only person she could trust and rely on was herself. And then the archivist says, this is the end of Lady Qi'ra's crimson reign, and this is how she ended it. So Qi'ra was trying to kill Darth Vader and Darth Sidious, and the Empire's investigators then revealed Crimson Dawn agents spread across the Empire and loads of other places. We've seen that play out in the Darth Vader comics and the Bounty Hunter comics. And once this all gets revealed, Qi'ra starts to activate them, which causes mass chaos across the whole of the Empire. The archivist notes that Maul taught Qi'ra about the Sith and the dark side, and then Qi'ra decided to start tracking down more artifacts. Now, she did somewhat inherit them from Maul, but one of the ones she was especially intrigued by was the Fermata Cage, Fermata Cage. But it needs dark side energy to open, so Qi'ra gives the Knights of Ren to the archivist because the archivist is trying to get the Fermata Cage open. Now it's worth noting here, if you want to know more about Maul and Crimson Dawn and all that stuff, obviously there's bits of it in Solo, a Star Wars story, which I assume most of you have seen, but a key thing about Maul's journey is the tail end of the Clone Wars, sort of season 4 onwards, especially the finale, and then also he does appear in Star Wars Rebels as well, so make sure you check those things out if you want more information on Maul. So Qi'ra was basically hoping that this Fermata Cage would be the key to defeating the two Sith Lords. She asks the Archivist to help her because the Archivist has some great knowledge on things, and so obviously with the Knights of Ren help because they can use the dark side of the Force, then they might have a fighting chance. The Archivist also asks for Ko von Faris's help because Ko von Faris knows about the Ascendant technology. Now, Ko is a character who is in the Dr. Aphra comics at the moment. They know a lot about Ascendant technology, which are people who are trying to fight the Sith. And if you want more information on that, then the Dr. Aphra comics are definitely worth picking up. I am tackling Dr. Aphra 27 next, but if you haven't already heard about Dr. Aphra issues 22 to 26, go back and check out episode 117 because that gives a lot more weight to the Ascendant and Ko von Faris and Aphra and what's going on with her, the Spark Eternal, all that sort of stuff. So with all this going on, Palpatine then calls a meeting with some of the crime lords because he's mad at them because there was this pointless war all started, which was obviously in War of the Bounty Hunters. And it all got started because Qi'ra basically said that the Empire is looking for a new crime syndicate to kind of take on a lot of the work for the Empire, and because they're going to dump the Hutts. And so that kind of spread across all the syndicates and caused this whole war, which was a big distraction. Now, some of the crime lords that are shown here, you've got the Hutts, you've got Black Sun, and it looks like Prince Caesar, and he's actually a central character in the Shadows of the Empire comics, or multimedia project. There's a book, comics, I think it's a game as well. That was all in Legends continuity. I'm not going to delve into that here. But as well as the Hutts and the Black Sun Syndicate, you've also got the Pikes, who are recently in Book of Boba Fett, and they're in the Clone Wars quite a lot. The Droid Gotra, Droid Gotra are in bits and pieces of canon content around at the moment, and then you've got Zarek Besh, who I don't really recognise at the moment, but I have a suspicion they're going to play much more of a key role as things go on. But there's one person missing from that, and that is Crimson Dawn, and their representative, who is Qi'ra. Well, Qi'ra's the leader of Crimson Dawn, but Palpatine, who I call Palps has noted that because of all this stuff caused by Qi'ra and Crimson Dawn and things, that they must kill her. They need to hunt down Qi'ra, destroy Crimson Dawn, and just get rid of it completely, because they've caused far too much hassle. So the Empire cracks down as well. They kill many Crimson Dawn agents and close docks across the galaxy for Crimson Dawn ships and everything like that, all trying to find Qi'ra. Now, Qi'ra herself, she's on a ship with Chanith Char and a few other people with her. It's all detailed in Crimson Reign, but Chanith Char is a bounty hunter who is in the Lando comics written by Charles Soule and is also in the Darth Vader 2017 comics, also written by Charles Soule. She basically had a relationship with Lobot, which caused friction with Lando and stuff, but also her parents were killed by Darth Vader, and she had to vow to not take revenge, and that's how she survived that encounter. And then she's been somewhat plotting against Vader since then. In the Lando comics, I think that's when it's kind of tackled, but she's kind of popped up in little bits and pieces here, and so she has a vendetta against Vader. So Qi'ra's there with Chanith Char and a few others, and they're ready to fight. But Qi'ra says, look, why don't we try talking to the Empire first? Let's see what we can do. So Qi'ra tells Savar Sun, who is the archivist, to start the Fermata Cage machine, and then she talks to Palpatine directly. There's quite a lot of dialogue here, it's quite interesting, but I'd say, pick up the comic if you want to listen to all of it. But in short, he calls her and Maul fools. And she's like, everyone who's ever called me a fool has lived to regret it. It's a bit of back and forth, but essentially she is getting her ship battle ready as well while this is happening. So the Crimson Dawn ship, the Vermilion, you see that kind of lift up and go into battle position and fly towards this Imperial Star Destroyer that is nearby. He says to her to not throw her life away pointlessly, and she says that she does not recognize his authority from the galaxy that he stole. Meanwhile, the archivist activates the Fermata Cage that's connected to all this huge amounts of technology and things, and the Knights of Ren are attached by like these neck brace things, and it starts up, and dark side energy starts getting sapped from the Knights of Ren, and there's some crazy colours and some very, very cool artwork. Palpatine feels a disturbance in the Force, and then he notes that Maul clearly taught Qi'ra how to cloud her mind so that he couldn't check it, but he wants to know what she did. She says that the key from Vader's fortress unlocked the Fermata Cage. That's all detailed in Crimson Reign number 4. Go check that out. I have done an episode on it. And she knows that that key, I think it's called the Screaming Key, which Vader had in his castle, they had no idea what it was for, but she did know, which is why she stole it. But while this is happening, you can see that the equipment holding the Fermata Cage in place is barely holding together. It's all starting to spark and things. Palpatine then force chokes her and says that she is lying. Qi'ra says that if Palpatine does kill her, he'll never know. We then see with the Fermata Cage that a big bit of purpley smoke that comes out of the cage seems to hit the archivist, but she is seemingly okay. Palpatine does let go of Qi'ra as she falls to the floor holding her throat, but then she notes that the Sith Lords are going to be freed and are going to come for him. That's what Maul's trying to achieve, and she knows that there can only ever be 2 Sith. So that's what she's trying to do. And it doesn't matter if she lives or not because everything has already begun. Palpatine does actually look quite concerned about this, and then the Vermilion in attack position crashes straight into the main Star Destroyer which was nearby. As this happens, the Fermata Cage equipment all explodes. That's on a planet far away from all of this. It looks like Palpatine is on the Death Star too, so this Vermilion ramming into that Star Destroyer did not kill Palpatine, but obviously he's still a little bit shaken by this whole experience, and he tells Darth Vader to kill anyone who know about the existence of the Fermata Cage. It's shown that Qi'ra didn't crash her ship into a Star Destroyer and die. She was on a little craft with Chanath Char and that lot, and she is alive. Now, Palpatine may think she's dead at the moment, but eventually he will figure this out, so they need to continue on. Qi'ra comms to the archivist, and Ren answers. Ren is the leader of the Knights of Ren. If you want to know all about the Knights of Ren, go check out the Rise of Kylo Ren episode I did. It was like my first or second episode, but I've done a redo of it recently where it connects a lot more with the canon content and Crimson Reign and all the other stuff they've kind of been somewhat involved in since the release of the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. It's a great miniseries by Charles Soule, but you find out how Kylo Ren, where he got his name from, why his lightsaber's red but kind of crackly and stuff, who the Knights of Ren actually are, and they're quite cool, the Knights of Ren as a concept. So I would recommend checking out my episode on that, which was episode 109. So anyway, yeah, Qi'ra comes to the archivist and Ren answers, and he says the Knights of Ren are no longer at Crimson Dawn's disposal. They're done being tortured and killed and attacked for all of these things, so they're gone. As he leaves, he does warn the archivist and co that Palpatine and Darth Vader would have definitely felt that, because even their amount of dark side energy the Knights of Ren have, they felt the spotlight on this area, so they're like, they are going to be coming right this way, you should leave or you're going to die. Qi'ra then tells the archivist to move to the next site and just try again, but it needs to work. Chanath Char is concerned because they've lost their main ship, they've lost the Knights of Ren, they've lost loads of people, the Empire's now all looking for them, and everything's starting to fall apart, it seems. But Qi'ra says, look, it's all part of the plan, it's fine. But then the last line of this comic is the archivist noting, it was not all part of the plan. So that's Hidden Empire 1. I'll be continuing with Hidden Empire 2 and etc. those issues in the coming weeks, so just keep an eye out for them. Make sure you subscribe to either this lovely feed of Comics in Motion or on youtube.com/genuine Chit-Chat, where all the episodes are in playlists and stuff. So if you want to go back and listen to the War of the Bounty Hunters and Crimson Reign and all those sort of other crossovers, go do that. With that all in mind, we move on to the next issue in this batch, which is Dr. Aphra number 27, and that is from the 2020 run of Dr. Aphra Comics. So it's written by Alyssa Wong, the artist is Minkyu Jung, the colour artist is Rachelle Rosenberg. This issue was released December 28th, 2022, and I can't see when a trade paperback is actually going to be released of this. I assume it will be announced in like a couple months' time. Normally a trade paperback seems to have between 4 and 6 issues, and obviously one issue is generally released once a month, so it's normally sort of 3 or 4 months into like a arc, then it will be announced what the trade paperback is, so at the moment, I'm afraid I don't know, and the same is the case for Bounty Hunters number 29. But with that in mind, here is the crawl for Dr. Aphra number 27. The hunt for the Spark Eternal has ended in catastrophe. While a spark-possessed Aphra tormented former friends aboard the Vermilion, the true Aphra learned about the Ascendant technology from its creator, Myrrell, and plotted her escape from a spark-induced prison in her mind. Ordered to steal the Spark Eternal by Ronan Tagge, Just Lucky and Ariel Yu have narrowly escaped the Vermilion with their lives. Sana Starros and her team of Aphra associates were not as lucky. The manipulative Spark seized control of the murderous droids BT-1 and 000 and convinced Ko-Fon Farris to defect to Crimson Dawn. After fracturing the team, the Spark abandoned the Vermilion and destroyed the pursuing Volt Cobra, with Sana and her crew still aboard. So the cockpit of the Volt Cobra is just floating in space with Sana and the crew aboard. They're seemingly unconscious, just floating in the bridge. Just like in Ariel, you find the ship's cockpit, and it seems that the crew are faintly alive judging by the scans, so they go and retrieve them. Magnatolvin, Deta Yao, Corin Aphra, Eustacia Oka, and Sana are all seemingly okay. Sana wakes up from a back-to-bath, and it's confirmed that they're in Ronan Tague's penthouse on Canto Bight. Now, Ronan Tagge was somewhat of an antagonist in Volume 1 of Dr. Aphra. I tackled that in episode 67 of Comics in Canon. He's like the nephew of Domina Tagge, who's leader of the Tagge Corporation, so a huge corporation that affects the Empire. The Tagges, not only have there multiple officers within the Empire, one of them you can actually see in A New Hope. He is in that boardroom meeting in the start. And they supply like a lot of ships and weaponry and things to the Empire. So Ronan Tagge is the sport nephew of Domina, and Dr. Aphra basically blows him up in the first volume of the Aphra comics, and he survived because he's got like super advanced back to technology. And also they're on Canto Bight. Now Canto Bight is a casino city on the world of Cantonica. You see it in The Last Jedi. It's basically, Cantonica is like a desert world. It's all based on like Vegas and Nevada and that sort of thing. But Canto Bight itself technically first appeared in the Legends of Luke Skywalker book. However, it was specifically created for The Last Jedi, and Legends of Luke Skywalker was like a run-up to The Last Jedi. It was in the Journey to The Last Jedi multimedia project. So, you know, it's quite a cool place, Canto Bight. There's also a book, Tales from Canto Bight, I think it's called, and there's lots of other little bits and pieces, so it's starting to get referenced in a lot more places, and it is a cool place. But essentially, Just Lucky called in a big favour to Ronan Tagge to keep all of these members of Aphra's old crew alive. Ronan would have killed all of them, but Just Lucky did have a big favour. Ronan also notes that the Bacta tanks are the cutting-edge technology, and they cost approximately 1 million credits per use. So the group of them owe 5 million credits to Ronan Tagge. And he says, well, you're in debt to me now, so you should go and get the Spark Eternal and bring it to me. Sana notes that they already have a contract with Domina Tagge, and he's like, yeah, but you owe me all this kind of money, so I'll leave you some time to think about this, and leaves the room. Just like he notes that this is exactly what he does. He always gets people indebted to him that they could never ever pay off, and Lucky has a little flash of himself. So with his brother's gambling and that sort of thing, obviously his brother got into loads of gambling debt, and the reason Just Lucky is essentially a hired gun now is because he just owes Ronan Tagge so much money. So while this is all going on the Archangel 4, you've got Dr. Aphra's body that's, consumed by the Spark Eternal, as well as 000 and BT-1. Now, if you're familiar with Aphra, you should know 000 and BT-1. 000 is basically like the antithesis of C-3PO. He's like a protocol droid with bloodlust and syringes coming out of his fingers when he wants and all kinds of horrible stuff. And BT-1's the same but for R2-D2. He's got like a ton of weapons like rocket launchers and all kinds of horrible stuff, and they love nothing more than killing. They were introduced in the 2015 Vader comics along with Dr. Aphra, and then when Aphra's own series started after the first batch of Vader comics ended, then they got a lot more fleshing out their backstory, what they really were, all kinds of stuff about them. It's really, really cool. I love 000 and BT-1. Anytime they come into it makes me happy. But 000 is talking to the Spark Eternal, and the Spark suddenly feels like a weird pain of some sort. He hits 000 and BT-1, and they kind of are KO'd on the floor, and then the electro tattoo arm of Aphra's starts going numb. The Spark Eternal then hears Aphra's voice, and they have a back and forth. It's quite a lot of dialogue, some quite cool, interesting stuff, but in brief, Dr. Aphra installed a defense program into 000 and BT-1, so when the Spark Eternal controlled them and took them over, it then infected the Spark, which essentially allowed Aphra to somewhat control the Spark and backdoor access, because the Spark Eternal is like an AI program mixed with crazy technology and all kinds of stuff. This is what Aphra learned from Miral. So Aphra says that if the Spark Eternal leaves her body and gives Aphra control again, she'll disable the program that will slowly deteriorate the Spark. However, if the Spark Eternal decides to not listen to Aphra, Spark will just eventually die. And the Spark is like, yeah, but you'll die too. And she's like, well, I'm going to die anyway at some point, and I'd rather die than be stuck in this prison doing nothing. So it's up to you. Either we can just both die, or you can give me control of my body back. The Spark has a moment to think, but then does agree with Aphra. They shake hands, and then suddenly, Aphra's got use of her own body again. She still has the Spark Eternal weird stuff kind of going around her and the strange thing in her chest, but she is now alive, although she can hear the Spark Eternal's voice. She's confused as to what's going on, and she's like, why is there Miral's big sword here? And it's confirmed that the Spark Eternal was heading to the Sith Lords to go and kill them. And the Spark says, well, this is what you can do now, because Miral's sword is specifically a Sith killer. So while that's all going on, Ko Von Faris is helping the archivist rebuild the Fermata Cage after the events of Hidden Empire 1. Ko doesn't really want to die for Qi'ra, and the archivist says, look, you just need to have faith. But Ko's like, well, I don't even think it's even going to hold Palpatine, and this is all just too much. So Ko goes and takes a break. When Ko goes off and is away from the Archivist and the Crimson Dawn agents that are kind of helping rebuild the stuff, they send a comm to Deta Yao. Now the comm notes that the Fermata Cage could potentially harness the power of the Spark Eternal, which is quite intriguing and something that Ko clearly wants to do. There's other information and stuff. Clearly, Ko has some sort of infatuation with Deta. There may be a connection there. It's unsure if it is mutual, but in any case, Deta does hear the comm while she's in Ronan Tague's penthouse, hears it and kind of mutters to herself that Ko is being stupid, and then joins the group without telling them what she said or that Ko is contacting her. So as a group, they tell Ronan, no, they're not going to go with Ronan's offer because they're more scared of Domina Tague. Sana is like, if we get you the Spark Eternal, Domina is just going to kill you, and then Domina's also going to kill us, so no deal. And he's taken aback by this. He's like, okay, I don't really expect that, but he says that he's actually got an army which Domina Tague doesn't have because he is with Crimson Dawn. It's noted that he aligns with Crimson Dawn because Qi'ra sees that new management in the Tague Corporation would be quite beneficial, so she is on his side. So in response to that, Sana says, yep, okay, we accept. And the rest of the group are taken aback by this and like, what are you doing? And Sana says, look, Domina Tague is a very scary person, but I think Qi'ra is just a little bit more intimidating and I want to be on the winning side when all this kind of war and stuff is over, so we accept. But we're probably going to have to do something about Domina Tague. And Sana and Ronan agree they must kill Domina Tague. And that is where Aphra 27 ends. So my friends, we move on to the final issue of this little batch, and this is Bounty Hunters number 29. It's written by Ethan Sachs, the artist is Paolo Villanelli, the colour artist is Arif Prianto, and it was released December 14th, 2022. The trade paperback collection has not been confirmed when that date of release will be, so you just have to wait and see and listen to future episodes when it eventually gets announced. Now, I'll read out the crawl in a sec, but don't forget that Paolo Villanelli was on my show, Genuine Chit-Chat, which you can find on its own podcast feed or on the YouTube channel of Genuine Chit-Chat. I managed to interview him, there's video footage and everything. It's a really cool chat to hear him, like his process, how it works being a comic illustrator for Marvel and some of the other things that he's been doing, and specifically about Bounty Hunters. So if you want to hear an interview with the artist that works on Bounty Hunters, go check that out. So here's the crawl for Bounty Hunters 29. Taonga and her bounty hunter crew have reluctantly taken a mission from Crimson Dawn to sabotage a supply shipment to the Imperial outpost on Bestine. But little do they know that there is a squad protecting the cargo transport and it's led by their former crewmate, Valance. Valance's team is part of the hunt against Crimson Dawn across the galaxy, as the Empire is flooding the underworld with bounties against all known associates of the Syndicate. Bloodshed has come to the back alleyways. So this all starts in Bestine's orbit. Now Bestine, specifically Bestine 4, was first mentioned in canon in the Clone Wars episode Lair of Grievous, which is episode 10 in series 1, and in my opinion probably the best episode in all of season 1 of the Clone Wars. Now it is actually first ever mentioned technically in a New Hope deleted scene, which is also in the Legends A New Hope novelization. In Legends it was first seen in the X-Wing game, however in canon it was first seen in Bounty Hunters number 28. The planet itself, Bestine 4, is in the inner rim, is quite Earth-like but has a lot more ocean, so it's got deserts and forests and all kinds of other stuff like that. The days have 26 hours in them, and a full rotation, so like a year for them, is about 680 days. But back to the story, you've got Taonga and her crew, that's her partner Losha, you've got Zuckuss and 4LOM, and then you've also got Bosk and Tasu Leech. Taonga tells her crew their plans to attack the Imperial supply ship to help out Crimson Dawn. Now, the Imperial facility that the supply ship is going to is a research and development facility. Now, the local people there have aligned with Crimson Dawn to fight against the Empire, because obviously the Empire does a lot of bad stuff. Now, while this is all going on, you've got Beilert Valance and the Revengers. Now, the Revengers, they're in all the Vader comics, I think, and I think they're in a couple of the Bounty Hunters comics. In short, there's a Trandoshan called Tanka, there is a Weequay called Qi'ra, and then there's a leader, which is a human called Ankar Lasam. So Valance and these Revengers plan to trap and to intercept Crimson Dawn / the Bounty Hunter crew who are going to attack. And now this bit is really cool in the artwork where you've got the pages like split in two and the left side is Valance and what he's doing and the right side is what Taonga's doing. So Valance basically tells some stormtroopers to patrol across the entire perimeter of the area near the facility. Meanwhile, Taonga asks the local insurgents who are aligned with Crimson Dawn for speeders so they can cover far more ground much more quickly. It then shows that the bounty hunter crew do manage to get to the landed ship, they sneak aboard and they take out some shore troopers and then proceed inside. Now, shore troopers were first seen in Rogue One. They do appear in Andor, as well as Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Mandalorian Chapter 15. They are also known as the Coastal Defender Troopers. In short, they work as kind of sergeants in parts, where they usually have like a squad of normal stormtroopers with them, but that doesn't mean their rank are specifically sergeants. What I found online, it basically says that when you are assigned as a shore trooper in a certain area, usually the rank and the position is just temporary, because there's not a lot of times you need shore troopers, hence why why we haven't seen them in canon very much. Obviously, the real reason is because they hadn't been created yet, but that in-universe explanation is quite nice, and one of the lines it says, like, it's quite rare for the Empire to be guarding, like, a really nice beachside thing or something near a shore, so that's one of the reasons you haven't seen them as much, but they are in this comic. So while this is all going on Bestine 4, we see at a place called the Son Tool Spaceport, which is owned by the Son Tool Pride. Now the Son Tool Pride are actually in the Dr. Aphra 2016 run. They're in like 10 or so issues, from issues 9 to 19, and even 000 actually ran them for a while. Now they first appeared in the Darth Vader 2015 comics, because Darth Vader actually attacked them and stole some of their credits. It was all in the midst of this competition with the Hutts and things, and so I'm not going to delve into it here, but go check out those comics. But it was Darth Vader number 7 in the 2015 run that they were specifically first appeared. So they're a crime syndicate, they're primarily Rhodians who are the same species as Greedo, and 000 controlled them for a while, things like that. They've been kind of up and down, but they're not really a major player in the crime syndicates, but that's who they are. So at the spaceport of this specific syndicate, they're getting ready to evacuate because the Empire have put bounties on the entire syndicate. Before they actually manage to evacuate, IG-88 attacks. He gives them 25 seconds to surrender. Now IG-88 obviously is a very iconic character. We saw IG-11 in The Mandalorian, who's very similar, but IG-88 was first in Empire Strikes Back in that lineup of the bounty hunters, which also included Bossk, for LOM, and Zuckuss, and IG-88 is also known as a Flut droid. In Legends there's a huge amount of backstory, in canon there's not quite as much, but I have done 2 episodes that do centre around IG-88 to a degree. The first one was the Age of Republic short story that he was in, and that was episode 43 of Star Wars Comics in Canon, and then there's the War of the Bounty Hunters IG-88 comic, which I tackled in episode 82 of Comics in Canon. So go check those out if you want more information on IG-88 in the canon, and he is technically IG-88B, but I delve into all that in episode 82, so go check that out. So the Son Tool Pride approach IG-88 and say that they would rather die than surrender, and they open fire. So IG-88 starts to shoot all of them, and he just decimates all of them. He then, after killing everyone there, completes the bounty and then acquires the next one, and it looks like he's acquiring his next bounty from Vakora. Now Vakora is a major player in the War of the Bounty Hunters. She is a part of the Unbroken Clan Syndicate, and she's been trying to track down and kill Cordelia, who Valance was protecting for ages, who is basically like the heir to both the Mourner's Wail and the Unbroken Clan Syndicates. She's not a very nice person, and she was in the early Aphra comics as well. She's kind of been flitting between the Bounty Hunters and the Dr. Aphra comics, but she's quite a major player. But she doesn't appear in this comic again. So back to the Bounty Hunters crew that are on this docked ship. Tasu, Leech and Bossk are looking around, and then Tasu is hit off the ship by the arm of a Trandoshan. It then shows that is Tanka who is there, part of the Revengers. Tanka launches themselves at Bossk, and there is a big Trandoshan standoff. Bossk thanks the scorekeeper for the gift of meat and bones for broth, because he notes that he was tired of Zuckuss cooking, and then Bossk and Tanka fight. Tanka lands some pretty hard hits onto Bossk. Bossk manages like 1 or 2 swipes, but is seemingly getting beaten quite badly. While this is happening, Tasu Leech is just hanging off the side of the balcony of this ship. Tanka hits Bossk very hard through lots of like barrels and stuff, and then falls near some like, it's either a hose or some rope or some sort of winch. It's like a cable thing. And Tanka notes that they are much stronger than Bossk and stand over them. Bossk knows that he is far more cold though, and kind of loops around Tanka, gets this cable thing wrapped around Tanka's throat, and then throws them off the edge of the ship, and we don't see what happens to Tanka from there. Tasu Leech then gets himself up, and is a little bit annoyed at Bossk because Bossk didn't help, but Bossk says, well, I avenged you, and Tasu's like, but I'm not dead. And Bossk is like, yeah, but it's the thought that counts. But the element of surprise is now gone. So then shows what's happening with the rest of the crew. So Losha and Zuckuss are planting detonators, but then the other 2 members of the Revengers, Qi'ra and Kalasam, have guns on them, and Losha lets out an uh-oh. Meanwhile, Taonga is there with some local insurgents. They start to get killed, so she and the last remaining one try and run away, but as they kind of turn a corner, the last insurgent gets shot by this red blast and collapses to the floor. Taonga lets out like a yell and dives out the way, and the person who had shot at them was Valance and recognises the voice. And Valance calls out, and both Tonga and Valance recognise each other. And that is where Bounty Hunters 29 ends. So my friends, that is the end of Hidden Empire 1. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. What have we got coming up though? In all honesty, I haven't actually thought that far ahead. I don't exactly know what I'm going to be reading next week. I may end up doing Hidden Empire 2 and the subsequent issues from that, but generally I like to try and have like pause between them. So there's the IDW publishing Clone Wars Battle Tales that I keep promising, but then there's also the Hyperspace stories by Dark Horse. I can't remember if I've got the 5th issue of the Yoda miniseries now. I think I've only got the 4th one because there's going to be 10 issues of that. I think the Han Solo and Chewbacca series hasn't finished yet. There's going to be 10 issues of that, so I can't do the part 2 of that quite yet. I feel like there's a mini-series or something that I am missing, and I can't think of what it is. I know there's some High Republic stuff going on at the moment, but I haven't got the final issues for that, and I don't want to delve into the High Republic Phase 2 until I've done the Convergence book review, and then I can kind of delve into the other stuff. I am about 2/3 through Convergence, but I don't think I'm going to finish it before next week, so I doubt I'll be doing the book review for that next week. So it's kind of up in the air at the moment. I'll figure out what I end up doing. But just be aware that the High Republic Convergence book review will be out at some point. The Hyperspace Stories by Dark Horse, that will be out at some point too. And then there's a few other little issues that are coming out over the coming weeks. There's like a Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary thing. So there's like a one-off comic about Jabba's palace there. There's also some Ewoks comics. There's also the Sana Starros series that started. There's Darth Vader Black, White and Red that's coming out. There's lots of things that are coming out over the next few months that are going to be quite interesting to delve into. But at the moment, I'm not fully sure. However, other stuff you can get your teeth into, well, there's obviously all the other amazing pieces of content that I have released on this very feed or on the YouTube channel, wherever you are listening. But I've also done guest spots, so I was recently on Stevie B's YouTube channel, a link to that is in the description, but I have started a new show. It's called Rebels Reviewed. It's only going to be 4 episodes of it. I do it with Math and Dave Horrocks, both of the Comics in Motion family. Episode 1 is out. You can watch the video version of that on YouTube as well. But in short, we review the whole of Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. I've seen the show a couple times, Dave's watched it once before, and Math has never seen it before either. It's a great opportunity for yourselves to get into Star Wars Rebels. It's one of the best pieces of Star Wars content that exists, and if you loved Andor, then there's probably quite a high chance you'll enjoy Rebels, because it is tackling a lot of the same themes, and although it starts off seeming like it's aimed at a younger audience, as you get into those later seasons, as I said, there's only 4 of them, it is very dark. There's a lot of intense stuff that happens in there, and each episode's only 20 minutes long, so it's quite easy to digest as well. So if you fancy delving into Star Wars Rebels, or you've already watched Star Wars Rebels, go check out Rebels Reviewed. You can listen to the audio-only version on the feed of Comics in Motion, and I put the first episode on Genuine Chit-Chat, or you can watch the full video version. The second episode will be out probably not until sort of April, May time, because we've got The Mandalorian coming out, which leads on to the next point, The Mandalorian Weekly Discussion Show. So, as I've been doing on Book of Boba Fett, and I did on Kenobi, and I did on Andor as well, I'm going to be doing weekly discussion shows on Mandalorian Series 3. There's going to be 8 episodes of Mando, so there's going to be 8 episodes of these discussion shows. I'm going to aim to release them every week, and they should be released probably on the Thursday or Friday just after the episodes air, because the episodes are airing on Wednesdays. There's a couple that go over mine and Megan's birthdays, so it may not be me hosting them, but I'll figure something out. But in short, subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll get to see all of those, or listen to them however you want to do that, or subscribe to the feed of Comics in Motion. Either way, it's going to be a variety of guests, some that have been on the other discussion shows, some new faces, so it's going to be a lot of fun there. You can follow me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat on Instagram, Twitter and on Facebook. I put Genuine Chit-Chat snippets up there. I also put photos of some of the artwork and stuff from the Star Wars comics I tackle. But a great way to keep up to date with everything that I'm doing, as well as loads of other incredible creators, is the Pop Culture Collective. The Pop Culture Collective is a newsletter which you can sign up to. It's weekly and it gives you updates on what I'm doing with Star Wars comics in canon, what I'm doing with Genuine Chit-Chat, and what loads of other amazing creators are doing too. A link is in the description to sign up to that, and it's a great way to keep up to date without having to focus on loads and loads of different people's social media, and obviously on my social media as well. And the last thing is you can support me by reviewing on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods or on Spotify, but you can also support me at patreon.com/genuinechitchat. For as little as £1 a month, you get access to over 140 episodes of Afterthoughts. That's where primarily myself and Megan review TV shows and movies and things like that, live performances, and sometimes holidays we go on. I've also released quite a lot of Star Wars Legends book reviews on there. I've done the Darth Bane books, Shatterpoint, Plagueis. I've recorded Revan, but haven't released that quite yet. I just finished listening to Darth Maul Shadowhunter as well, so I'll be doing a recording of that too sometime. So there's lots of different things on there. So if you want to support the show, get bonus content, and loads of other cool things, please consider going to patreon.com/genuinechitchat. But that's enough from me, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'll talk to you next week with whatever I decide to do. And yeah, I'll be doing the weekly discussion shows with Mandalorian, I think next week as well. So lots of cool, busy stuff. Thank you for your support as always. I'll talk to you next week, and may the Force be with you. The intro for Star Wars Comics in Canon is arranged by myself, Mike Burton, and the backing music was made by Eric Matias of soundimage.org.
You have just experienced host, creator, everything elser of Genuine Chit-Chat, and also the host and creator of Star Wars Comics in Canon, found on the Comics in Motion podcast, Mike Burton.